You have to talk a little louder for me because I only have one ear, and the other one don't hear very good.
Okay, I'm coming over there. So get comfortable, you get comfortable. Here we go. Okay. I'm going to start out with the basics. Make sure I have your name right. Frank Wright, F-R-A-N-K-W-R-I-G-H-T.
That's correct.
All right. So let's start with how old are you?
78 and a half.
That's the actual age, not...
Actually, July the 5th, 1925.
Wow. Okay, you're about my dad's age. I think he was March something, 1925.
Wow.
Now...
I'm about the 10th youngest alive in the Raider Battalion. So.
Now, explain what the Raider Battalion is.
The Raider Battalion was the Special Forces, the Green Berets, whatever you want to call it nowadays, you know. But it was the first special units that were organized in 1941 by Colonel Carlson, and they wanted a special forces for the Marine Corps to combat the Japanese in their march across the Pacific. So they asked for volunteers to join the special forces, and they had thousands of them that did, but hundreds qualified.
What did you have to go through to qualify?
Hand-to-hand combat, knife fighting, knife throwing, hand grenade accuracy, machine guns accuracy, be able to march 25 miles with a 50-pound pack, and have determination of gung-ho type of Marine.
So you weren't going to be fighting in open areas, I take it?
Yes.
What was the goal with this group?
Well, pardon?
What was the goal? What was
at first we were hit and run, and they would go on submarines, and they'd come up in the evening and go ashore and get damages done to the airfields and spotters in the islands, and radio communications and stuff of this nature, so that when planes would go over these occupied islands, they would not be able to call the Japanese headquarters and tell them that, you know, that there's going to be a raid someplace or something like that, and then we'd go back to the shore, get on our rubber boats, and boogie back to the submarine. That's what the first part. That's what they were doing at first.
My last interview with Scotty Nilsson, who and his job was to fly over looking for the Japanese forces. Oh. So you're down below there trying.
Yeah, I was the grunt. So.
What you're saying? They did it, but they didn't do it. You did it. When
you say they.
You were saying that the special forces.
No, in 1941. Now see, in 1941 when that was Carlson's Raiders.
Right.
And they were the first ones that went in, and they organized the first Raiders, and then afterwards they had Carlson Edson. Then Colonel Edson then was the second Raiders Battalion, and then they organized later on the 3rd Raiders and then the 4th Raiders. And I was in the 4th Raiders, and I helped form the 4th Raiders. Okay. And that was in October, I think, October 1942. And then I trained, and I was, at that time, I was stationed in Tongue Point, Oregon, and where I met.
I was wondering how that happened.
Yeah, yeah. She was in high school in Astoria, Oregon area, out of Astoria, a place called Westport, and when I was stationed on guard duty there in the Marines at Astoria, that I met her at that time. And I was just turned 17 at that
Can I
time.
ask how many years?
2.
No, how many years have you been together now?
Oh, 58? 7.
Going on 58.
Going on 58 years.
All right. Oh,
Yeah. So,
that's interesting. The other thing I'm finding is people who fought in World War II stay married, unlike today.
yeah.
Well, that was the thing. Nowadays, it's easy to not stay married.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, anyway,
Yeah.
how did you end up in the military? What motivated you to join? Can you remember the day that you went in?
I was, as I say, I was a kid, 16 years old, and living in Little Rock, Arkansas. And I was at the kitchen table building a model airplane. And I heard over the radio that Pearl Harbor had been bombed on December the 7th, 1941. So I knew that was, I was very gung-ho again, if you will. And I went to a movie theater, and I saw some of their movies that they were putting out about that time on it, and I don't remember which one it was. And I decided that that's what I wanted to do. So I went down to about the 15th of January, 1942, and to join up. And I got into the Marines there. They said I was too skinny, and I was 5 pounds underweight. I couldn't join. So I went home and figured out how I could do pass the physical. So I bought me a whole bunch of bananas, and I stuffed myself with bananas. And then I went back down there and took my physical, and I passed. And so
You were still skinny.
I'm still skinny, but I weighed the amount on it. And so they said, well, they needed proof that I was 17. Well, my mother said that the church had burned that had my birth certificate in it, and so she said, well, I'll sign an affidavit that you're 17. And my aunt was a notary public, so she says, and I'll sign that too. So they made an affidavit that I was 17 and born in this on December the 5th, 1924, which was a lie. So that made me just 17 by 1 month for the Marine Corps.
And you were actually how old?
I was actually 16 and a half because I was born July the 5th, 1925.
Okay.
And then I went into the joined the Marines and actually passed it and left for boot camp on January the 21st, 1942.
That was, what, 6 days after you went in?
And then I went over to, I was sent to San Diego for the boot training. And I went through boot training there.
What was that like?
Hell,
Had you ever seen the ocean?
I'd never seen the ocean, never been out of Arkansas. Well, I had. I'd been down, I was in Texas once on a vacation and back. That's the first time I'd ever been out of that area, out of the South on it. And went from there, Little Rock to California, and that was a big thing for me. You know, I couldn't believe that there was that many.
And why would it have been hell? Was it just the brutality, the pace?
Yes.
Homesickness?
Yes. Oh, at that, no, well, homesickness, yes, but I got over that. But I had never been cussed out. I had never been beat and gone through the training. And at that time, the drill instructors were allowed to not beat,
Lay
hit,
hands
strike, lay down the law and do things that were weren't necessary, correct thing to do as of now. I became a drill instructor after I got out, so I know what we were allowed to do. But anyway, I remember when I did something, I think they teaching us how to march, I think, and they said platoon halt, and whenever you halt, you're supposed to be 40 inches from the guy's back to your breast. And I was about maybe 25 or 30 inches, and so he came over and asked me, he said, "Boy, what's your name?" And I says, "Private Wright, sir." He said, "Well, Wright, you're all wrong." And he popped me over the top of the head with his baton. So pushed me back where I should be, and that kind of got my attention. And they gave us, and if you didn't take a bath properly or often enough, well, they'd send you out with a couple of big boys behind the tents, and they'd give you a sand bath, and they'd scrub you down with sand, and then you go out and rinse yourself off. Then after that, you became more clean. You thought cleanliness was a little bit better. Things like that they would.
It was brutal, but do you think they got the point home?
Oh, yes, definitely. Definitely. And I could have killed every one of them. I just hated them until the day I graduated.
And then?
And then I just disliked them. But after I got into combat, I was pleased with it, because that teaches you a lot of discipline and how to take care of yourself. And it was necessary. It was necessary. Of course, at the time, I didn't know. I was a 16-year-old kid, wasn't even out of high school.
At that age, 16-year-olds know it all.
Right. So you don't get this type of treatment at home and everything. I'm still playing rubber guns in the backyard. Now,
when you went in, you were 16, you went to San Diego. Did you make any friendships that lasted in boot camp, or did you meet people and then they were left behind?
They're left behind. Yeah, you meet people, and when you're transferred, so you're not transferred. I was in a platoon 150, and then when we went through, I think it was 8 weeks, but I'm not positive, in the boot camp. Then we went through that, and then a third of them went here, and a third went there, and a third went there. See, so, and my third went to Astoria, Oregon. Well, I went with probably 20, 30 guys, and then we got up there, and then later on we went to different places. That's where I joined the Raiders there, because I wanted to get away from Astoria. It was raining all the time. I mean, all the time, and I did not like the place. It was like a foreign country to me, because of the people there were Finnish, Scandinavians, and you'd walk down the street and you'd wait for a stoplight and you'd hear them talking a different language, and I just didn't like it as well, and that's the only one I really liked about it, really. But I wanted to get out, because I was doing just guard duty, and I wanted to get in where the action was. So.
Okay, tell me what happened when you volunteered. What did you go through in order to get into the Raiders?
First thing, I was interviewed. They asked for volunteers. Said that they were making a special outfit as a special. They didn't call it special forces or anything, but it was an operation that's going to be like a suicide operation, and it was really getting in there and doing, the hand-to-hand fighting, and boy, just really ballyhooed it up really nice. And so that's for me. And so I joined, and I went up for an interview, and they asked me why I wanted to join the why I wanted to join the Raiders, and I told them I wanted to fight, and I wanted to kill the enemy, and I didn't care how I did it. And so with my attitude and at that time, I was pretty well physically fit, because I went in at 128 pounds and I was 165 after I got out, and I was pretty solid at that time. I was small, but still solid. So I figured that I could pass the physical, and they said, well, if you can pass the physical, then you're accepted. And so I took the physical and I passed. And so then I think that was in October 1942 when I...
So you hadn't even been in a year yet?
No, no, at that time. And Colonel James Roosevelt was my commanding officer on it. And
What's the relationship there too? Is there a relationship to the Roosevelt family?
his son.
Oh,
That was Franklin. That was Delano, the president's son.
Wow.
I think it was Elliot. I think was the oldest son. And then this is Jimmy or James on it.
Okay.
And he was a tough man. And he was the executive officer for Colonel Carlson when he formed the first Raiders. And he got pneumonia and fungus infection, I think it was, on Guadalcanal and some of the islands. First, that was before our outfit had been formed in '41. And he was sent back to the United States for to get over his illness. And while he was in the hospital in San Diego, he met his nurse there, who finally became his wife. And then he talked his father into letting him form another outfit, which was the 4th Raiders. And so what Jimmy wanted, Jimmy usually got. So, but there was the old saying that Eleanor, Roosevelt's wife, was President Roosevelt's wife. I said that that she hated war, but my son Jimmy loves war because he can express himself. And that was her stories about Jimmy.
Well, is that because he was a good leader, or he liked?
Very good leader.
Really?
Very good leader. Another thing about the Raiders, the commanding officers did exactly what the enlisted men did. And
So they had to keep up.
they had to not keep up, they led. And many a time I've gone on 25-mile hikes standing right by Roosevelt. And he and I would be chugging right along together, you know. And so was his executive officers. And then when we got there, we'd sit down together and take our shoes off and rub our feet, and it was the same thing. When we got there, we'd all clean up and eat the same tables. But the commanding officers, and the Raiders, that was their thing. They commanded, and they did things what the enlisted men did. It didn't last that long, however, when we got overseas and stuff, because they tried to get them in the officers' area, but it was the officers were like this, and the grunts were right here. You know, I mean, it wasn't like the officers' country on it. But that was there, and of course the Maine Marine Corps did not like that philosophy.
Okay, camaraderie.
Yeah, they think they want the commanding officers to be above and beyond approach from the enlisted men on it, and because I give the orders and you follow them.
Right.
And if I become friends with you or associated with you, says then you don't respect me. That was their belief at the time.
Right.
What it is now, I don't think has changed too much, but
Well, that's tradition.
yeah. But anyway, the Raiders were that way on it.
Now, you obviously trained. How long did you train to be in the Raiders?
I went in October 1942, went to Camp Pendleton from Astoria, Oregon, down to Camp Pendleton, and we were trained in Camp Pendleton. The 4th Raiders did. And we got there and we trained off of San Clemente. We attacked San Clemente on the beach, and we did all that stuff down there until February 1st, 1943. And February 1st, 1943, then we got aboard ships, and I went on to USS President Polk. It was a converted luxury liner at the time.
Okay.
And that was where they took the swimming pool out and they made bunks out of it and stuff like that, and we slept in the hole. And so it was converted over for a troop ship. And we went to the Hebrides and over in Espiritu Santos, I think, was a thing in there. In the, is that the Gilberts? I'm not for sure if it's the Gilberts. It's in the Hebrides section on it. And we got there, and they would cross the equator. When is Washington's birthday? What, the 22nd?
21st or 22nd.
21st or 22nd. Well, we crossed at that time because we lost a day.
Right, international time.
Yeah, and on the 21st or 22nd it was, because he had two birthdays that month.
Yeah, I was born in Australia. Whenever I go back and forth, you go over, they're going over, I think you lose it and it gets confusing.
Yeah, really. Anyway, that's so we must have arrived there the last part of February. I don't remember. I have records of when I actually got there, and we trained there, and for she went from there, went to Guadalcanal, I think it was right after that. By that time, Guadalcanal had been secured, and almost secured. And we got there and we did trainings in the coconut grove there, where we had our tents and stuff, and then we went out. And
so you haven't seen combat yet? You've been training?
I had not seen combat at that time. And then we went, and then in July 43, I think it was July the 5th, my birthday. July the 5th, I think it was, 43. Our fourth waders went to Baroko, I think it was Baroko, and they attacked Baroko and Energai Inlet. I can't remember the islands that was in there. That was the first combat of the 4th Marines, 4th Raiders Battalion at that time.
Can you describe what it was like as you went in and as you...
Well, I didn't hit Baroko on it. It was Energai. Taxing my memory.
I have these moments all the time.
Yeah, and in a guy thing. Well, it was in that campaign. It was frightening.
But how did you go in first? Did you go in submarines or boat?
No, I didn't go in submarines. I trained on submarines, but I never went on.
But the first time you went into combat, how did you arrive at the scene?
Right, through LSTs and LCIs, which was landing ships, tank,
right,
and landing craft infantry.
So you're sitting in this...
Standing.
Okay, you're standing right...
Standing, yes, standing. It's standing in the LCIs because the LCIs it's a Higgins boat. And it's a big boat. I don't say big boat, it's 35 feet or something like that, maybe like that. Maybe a platoon of men or two, I don't remember how many people get on it. We're standing there, riding the waves, going in.
An hour?
Half hour.
Okay.
Sometimes, and that particular one on it. And then go up into the surf, and it goes up, As it comes in, the Higgins boat drops the anchor way out. I would say way out, maybe 100 yards or maybe less, and grabs onto something and then goes into the beach, goes up as far as they can on the beach, and then it drops down and then you run out on it. And then the top goes back up like that, and then they reel and pull themselves back. Back into the water and pick up the anchor, and they go out and get another load on it.
Yeah, but here you are, you're on this boat coming in. Can you remember when that front gate dropped, what you saw and what you did?
Yes, to see at that particular place, our company, we had no firepower. I mean, we didn't have any fire on us. We of course, came in and we got our feet wet up to their knees, and then went on in from there. And but we didn't have any fire on us at all. There's no mortars, no nothing on ours. Baroko. Oh yeah, I was very queasy. Of course, I was queasy when first thing riding up and down the Higgins boat. That made me real sick.
Oh.
And a lot of guys, not just me, but a lot of guys were very squeezy from that. And then, of course, when it get on solid ground, then you really feel better.
Right.
But then you're feeling differently by being halfway scared, because again, I was just 17 at that time, you know. But by that time, and I was a corporal, squad leader, and of course you can't show it within your squad, you know. And so, and I had a point man, which was a scout, and a BAR man.
BAR.
Browning automatic rifle, which is the forerunner of the AK-47, 57, 47, or whatever that 47 that they use now. It's an automatic rifle, and in fact, I think they still use part of it on a big, huge thing, and got a big clip on it, and usually have a man that carries all the ammunition behind you on it. And anyway, the BAR, and they were my two people that were always in front of me on it. And then they'd go out and we'd scatter. We didn't get fire until the second day on it, which was very little fire on it. And we came back to the ship, I guess 2 days later on it. And we were a reserve. Our company was a reserve for another company in the 4th on it. And we were there, I think, probably a week doing cleanup and everything. And it was a smaller operation. And my company, went into action. Cleanup action was all we did after that on it. And then the Raiders broke up.
What is cleanup action?
Cleanup Japanese that did not surrender or had not been killed, that gone off into the jungle,
Right.
And we had to find them.
See, in that one little word, you go cleanup action, I'm thinking there's something back there.
Yeah.
Describe what you did. I mean, you didn't just go out and go, hey, come on, let's go in.
Yeah, well, you went out and found them and killed them.
All right.
And
I mean, what was that like? I'm trying to get a feel, because you're giving me some wonderful stories, but
how I felt.
Not how it felt, but I mean, that must be so difficult. I live on a farm. I have to kill animals occasionally to eat, or because they're hurt. I cannot conceive of doing what you did to protect your country.
Well, my larger action happened after I got out of the Raiders.
Really? Okay.
On it. And because I say my company was in my battalion, the 4th Battalion, was in the last part of the organization of the Raider battalions.
Right.
And by that time, we'd already gone to Macon Island, and then Guadalcanal and Baroko, and some of the other islands in there, it became a larger type of operation where they needed not just the small groups, but larger groups to go in. They decided to break up the raiders, and they broke up the raiders in February 1st, I think it was 1944. And then we went to different areas on it. I had most of the raiders went into the 4th Marine Regiment. I went into the 3rd Marine Regiment, and the reason that I was in the hospital with broken arches at that particular time that they broke up. And when they broke up, well, then most of my company went into the 4th Marines, and then I was transferred into the 3rd Marine Division.
Right.
And it got into the 3rd Marine Division, and then they then after that I was in the weapons company at that time, and Fox Company, I think it was, and we trained on Guadalcanal for larger operations, and our operation was to go into Guam, and then we attacked Guam to recapture it.
What is the difference between what you did, though, and the raiders? How large a group would go in, and how would it be different than...
We'd go in by battalions and companies, companies, battalions, and divisions. You know, probably 8,000 men or something like that into, you know, maybe 3 or 4 battalions in one spot on it. And I don't know how many battalions it took on Guam, but it was probably 2 or 3 divisions in that area on it, and we're talking about, you know, 20,000-30,000 people. So, but they had the first when we went on, I went in on Green Beach with the 21st Marines, 3rd Division, and we went over the side of the ship. I forgot the name of the ship we were on, but we went over the side of the ship on cargo nets, clambered down the cargo nets into LCIs, landed craft infantry, and we'd fill up that, and of course as the ship would go down, the LCI would come up like that, and some guys would get crushed in between, you know, because they didn't jump in or whatever. We got on that LCI, went in probably a mile toward the beach, and then we transferred over into a amphibious tank. And the reason for that is they had coral reefs there, and they had and the Higgins boat couldn't go over that, so we had to crawl over with the tank part. As they were a lot smaller than the LCIs, but they were built about the same, except they were empty inside and tracks. And we got in there, and that was the first landing I ever made that were able to. We got into the beach, and the tank just rolled up on the beach, and we got out dry feet. So, and then a wave came in, and wet feet, and that's your mode of transportation, is your feet. You have to keep them dry, you know. So you try to keep as many socks, dry socks, in your pack as you can. And we landed on the beach, went into a rice field, which is a large field that the Japanese and natives had planted rice and all that stuff. Before they went in there, before we were able go back a little bit, before we landed on Guam, they took all of our money away and reissued us Hawaiian dollars. they were dollars and $5 and $10 that had Hawaii printed on the back end of it.
Right.
And they took all of our regular money away and got regular money, but it just had Hawaii. And that was the only legal tender that we could spend from that day on.
What was the purpose behind that?
When the Japanese overtook and captured Guam, and I don't remember the years, and that probably in 1940 maybe,
Right.
and they captured the payroll master. And the payroll at that time, it had many millions of dollars in United States currency.
Okay.
The Japanese got it. It was still on the island someplace.
Oh, I'm beginning to.
So, and they didn't want the Marines to be capturing the payroll, the Japanese payroll master or a bank or whatever it is, and recoup that money. And then they'd have all this
Right.
money. Well, they wouldn't be able to spend it because they didn't have Hawaii on it.
It's interesting.
So anyway, that's how that, if you ever see any money with Hawaiian on the back of it, those were referred to as Hawaiian dollars.
Okay.
And that was the reason on it in 1944, I think it was.
Okay.
On it. Anyway, we got there in a rice field, and there were 2 water buffaloes still in the rice paddy out there grazing and stuff. And mortars were coming in, and you just zigzagging back and forth trying to keep from being shot or mortar hit you. And ran up to the edge, the bottom edge of a large hill or mountain, if you will, knoll, what you want to call it, probably 500 feet high or something, but on a slant like that. And we got in there. Well, the enemy was on the other side, and they were lobbing mortars into our side. And then we stayed there got pinned down there almost all day, and that was south of the town of Agana and Petty Point. And we stayed there that evening, and they mortared us most of the night. And that's where I lost most of my hearing, from that part there on
I was
it.
about to ask what it was like being in a battle like that. Did the mortars land near you, or were they?
Oh yeah.
How close?
Oh yeah. You know, we dug down as far as we could get in the foxholes, and I was only about maybe 3 feet deep myself on it, and they'd probably 10 feet away from you, you know, and they'd cave in your thing. You grab your helmet and start putting dirt out again.
You couldn't even fight. You were basically pinned down.
That's right. We stayed there that evening, and then early morning they had a bonsai attack, and the Japanese came over the hill in force, about thousands of them on it. They just came over, and we shot them, and machine gun everything, and anything that was moving up out of the foxhole was shot. And
I'm gonna go check my tape.
yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
listening. Make sure I have enough tape left here. Oh, okay, we've got about 10 minutes, then I'll grab another hour of tape.
Oh, good.
Not that I want to.
No, I got lots of it.
Oh, okay.
Anyway, one of the things that happened at that time, a Japanese jumped in my foxhole with me, and I was fighting with an M1 at that time, and it's a Grand rifle on it, 8 shots. I couldn't turn around fast enough, and in the small hole I was in, so I grabbed my knife, and I had to stick him in the stomach with the knife on it, and I cut him in the stomach and ripped him open, and he lost most of his innards in my foxhole. Pushed him out. Got another one came up and
So how far away was the enemy? It sounds like they were within 20, 30 feet.
Oh, we were hand-to-hand combat.
I could tell that, but that close.
They came over, as I say, they came over in a bonsai attack over the hill.
Okay. Oh, see, when you said bonsai, I was thinking planes. They were on foot.
Oh yeah. Well, I see. A bonsai attack is when they get all hooked up on sake,
Right.
and they go hollering bonsai, bonsai,
I
bonsai,
hear this coming.
and then they come in at you, and then that's when you can just sit there and just shoot them down like they're flies, you know, as far as that goes.
Right.
And they overwhelm you
Right.
with that. Well, they just keep coming at you like that. When you can't shoot and load fast enough, because that's when I was having. I only have an 8-shot rifle in the first place on it, and then I have to change my magazine.
Right.
And so all I had to do, I had to protect myself, was my my K-bar knife. And then I also had a gung-ho knife with me. I carried a gung-ho knife and a K-bar knife on it. I could show you. I've got a collection. Have a collection in there. And then, so I was, and I had expended my ammunition. And while I was getting rid of this one Japanese that was in there, another one came over and was going to bang at me. And my buddy from the other side, he shot him first, and he fell in. So I had 2 of them in there, getting rid of them. But we stayed there all night long, and till the next morning we got up, looked out, and those 2 water buffaloes were still grazing in the in the rice paddies out there. So we were left there. We went into the city or town, if you will, whichever an island town would be. Is not occupied by many people, but anyway, of Agana, and went on up Petty Point. I stayed there. We captured Guam. I found a case of sake, 2 cases of sake there, and this fella and I buried it because we couldn't carry it with us. So we buried it in near this town of Agana. But we took off. And we that was our only action, actually, besides cleaning up around. And then at nighttime we'd go out, and patrols would go out after Guam had been taken, and we'd find different people, different Japanese out in the hills and stuff, and they were natives would tell us where they were, and we could smell them. Out there, they'd be barbecuing dogs and stuff. You smell the nice aroma of food, and so you follow that, and you find out then, and you shoot all of them.
How did the people on Guam feel about the Americans and the Japanese?
The Americans had a good reputation there. The Guamanians really liked them. The French people didn't like them too much. It was occupied by the French, really.
Right.
And one of the reasons they didn't like them too much is when that the Americans were a little too free with their daughters, and the Marines were been overseas a long time, and so the French plantation owners were not really thrilled about us. Personally wise, they were happy that we took the island back. The Guamanians loved us because we were nice to the Guamanians, and the Japanese were not. And so we had problems on Guam that some of the young girls would come in, and they'd have hand grenades underneath their arms, and they were told to come in and to our chow line and stuff like that. And when we all gather around the little girl, she would raise her arms up, and the hand grenades would fall out and kill them plus other Marines and stuff.
Girl.
Yeah, just little bitty girls. Like, they wouldn't know the difference. They'd put them on there like that, and then, you know. So that was kind of how they treated people, you know.
Well, no, I mean, if they used children to do their killing, that's
Yeah.
really brutal.
Yeah, well, that any way that they could, you know.
Right, were you near when any of those went?
No, fortunately I
Very
was not.
fortunate.
No, I wasn't. We had, we took Guam, and then after that we started training for another operation. And we didn't know it at the time, but we were training to go into Iwo Jima. So we had February the 19th, 1945, I think it was.
I'm going to change tape now because I feel a story coming on.
Yeah.
I don't want to stop you in the... My husband, by the way, is the County Veterans Service Officer. If you ever need help with your benefits, his department's the one that helps people with benefits. But no, just history shouldn't be sanitized. That's a great belief I have. Personal experience are such a large part of history. You can hear about the battle plans from anyone, but the people who were out there, the individuals who repeat what they saw and heard, they're the ones who make history come alive. And anyone can read a book, but hearing what you have to say is valuable beyond belief. But that's why I like to do this. I love to listen.
Yeah.
Okay, here we are, heading to Iwo Jima.
Well, we were training for Iwo Jima at the time, and of course we didn't know what we were training for on it. But it was in a little bit different type of training that we had been doing before. Just a little bit. We were not in the jungle training type and crawling on our bellies through the marsh and stuff of this nature. So it was a little bit more open part of country on Guadalcanal. And anyway, we got aboard ship, and it was what name of that? I forgot the name of the ship.
It's not important. It's what
Yeah,
it is.
and to me it would be. Anyway, they told us at the time, and they gave each one of us a little map of Iwo Jima. I still have mine on it. I still have that map on it. And anyway, they folded it up and I put it in my pocket and I kept it there. And they showed us what we're going up against and all that. We were supposed to land just off of Mount Suribachi, which was at the end of the pork chop. You are familiar with the...
Vaguely, I'm not a rural historical.
Okay.
If you go ahead and describe it, I can...
The Iwo Jima is, I think, 2 miles long, a mile wide or something like that. I can't remember exactly. It's a small island.
Right.
At the small end of the pork chop, we call it the pork chop island.
Kind of like this now.
That's right.
Okay.
And Iwo Jima is right at the tip. Pardon me, not Iwo Jima. Yeah, Mount Suribachi.
Not sure about you. Okay.
Mount Suribachi is right there on it. Airport number 1 is right in here. Airport number 2 is off sideways this way. And airport number 3 is right about there. And this side of it.
Well, okay.
Anyway, because airport number 3 is, but anyway, they had, February the 19th, 1945, I think, was the date when it was hit. There was so many days of bombing, so many days of ships sending their salvos in on the island. You just figured nothing could live on that thing, because it was such a small thing, and then this bombs and salvos from ships, and it was pretty from the ship. It was pretty seeing all the bombs coming down and all the fireworks going and stuff. On February the 19th when they hit, and I say they because I didn't go in on the first landing, I can't remember what companies went on first landing. Anyway, I was in reserve on it. My company was in reserve on it. And we went in on the 21st, which was 2 days on it. And they were still, had just gotten off the beach at that time on it. There were bodies, legs, heads, mutilization all over the beach.
And this is from the bombs?
No, this is from our men. Our men, when we got there, all these bombs and all these salvos and anything hadn't done hardly any damage to them.
Really?
Because they all went underground. The island was just honeycombed with tunnels, and they were way down in the ground. And on Mount Suribachi, they was way back in the caves. And so they did do damage, but not that much. So when we landed on the 19th, of course they did not bomb anymore, didn't send any ships didn't send any more salvos in. And so when we landed with our Higgins boats, because they all came in on Higgins boats, the Japs opened up on Mount Suribachi. Mount Suribachi right here.
Why do we do it this way? Mount Suribachi right there. Oh, you're going to do it. That's good.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. This is it goes up like that.
Right.
Then this is a cliff that goes down to the beach.
Okay.
Like so on it. Mount Suribachi, this is where we hit right here. And Mount Suribachi, all of their guns and placements went right down the beach.
Okay.
And the first people that hit the beach were just slaughtered and pinned down in this black volcanic sand that it clogged your rifle up and everything else. We used, when we knew that, and when we were still on board ship, they issued us condoms
to
go over the top, go over the front of the barrel of the rifle and over the mechanism on it,
the sand down.
so that when we got there, we keep the sand out of the things. And they came in. I came in on the second day, I think it was 21st, on it, and it was just littered with body parts. And they had I forgot what they call them. They were big sacks. They call them body bags now, but they're sacks then.
Basically sacks with the
And the picking up the parts.
Right.
And of course, when we came in, they were still shooting on it. They hadn't secured the here yet.
Right.
Suribachi was not quite secured. We came in the next day, I think it was the 22nd anyway. The first flag raising on Suribachi, right up at the top. That was the first one. It was such a little. Pardon?
You were still down here?
I was down here.
Right.
I didn't see the first raising of the flag because the flag was only about yay big, and it was so small. When they finally got up, I think it was the second or third day, they finally got up to the top, and they said they wanted a flag up there. Some guy had a flag, and they put it up there, and it was a real small flag. And they said, "No, we want something you can see." So they sent a man down. He went down the hill, down the mountain of Suribachi, and he got onto a boat, went over to one of the ships and picked up a large flag. And he came back and fought his way back up.
Oh my God.
And he got up there, and that's when Rosenthal and picked up, I forgot how many men they were to
I know Joe Rosenthal.
oh, pardon?
I know him.
Oh, great. Well, he then set the second flag up.
Right.
He set the guys up and says, "Okay, I want this, that, and the other thing like that," and says, "You know, you help push that thing up, you know." and he hit it just like that.
He did. I think he took photos of the earlier raising too.
Yeah, oh, he did?
He got photos of the first one, but it was the second one that just caught the spirit.
Yeah, and that was it on it. Anyway, I saw that too.
you
So,
actually
yeah,
saw
I
that.
saw that one. So
Where were you at when you saw
about right in here.
So you were still fighting?
Yeah, oh yeah. Well, not too much though, but I was still fighting, but we weren't in big battles. Then we had this.
Okay, I'm going to pause a minute. You're standing there. You're fighting, but not really fighting. You look up and you saw the flag. What did you feel? What did you think?
You get chills. Just chills all over your body.
Like that.
Yeah, and you get you want to cry.
Right.
You know, and your nose gets tingly on it, and your eyes get wet, and
You know what you're fighting for. You know what you're fighting for. Hey, I do the same thing. You want the camera off? That must have been the best feeling. Okay, camera's off. I apologize. Okay, where'd you go? There you are. Okay, got it. No, but that to me is an amazing thing. You were there during one of the great moments of the war.
yeah.
And you were down below, you saw the flag.
I saw the flag, and and of course everybody yelled and hollered and everything, and then of course we took off. Well, we went. The 5th Division. The 5th Division was on this side of the island here,
Right.
and a 3rd Division was over here,
Right.
and that's where I came in on the 21st Marines. We took off here, and we bypassed the 1st airport, and the 5th Division went over here, and we were, by that time Suribachi had been secured, and then so we left this way and this way to start securing this whole portion of here. And we got over to here, and as we was passing through here, I got hit in the head with a rifle slug, and just hit me like that and hit the side of my head on where my helmet, and then creased
So
off.
hit the helmet.
Hit the helmet, and crashed it on it, and knocked me out. I fell down into a hole, and my squad then thought I'd been dead. They passed me, and the second group that came up behind me picked on it, checked me, and saw that I was okay, because I was still I started moving around by that time. Then they picked me up, then got me, and then I asked where my company was, and they said, well, it had gone on. So I went on up there, and as I went through halfway between here and there, I was going through there, and there was a foxhole off to my left that they had bypassed already. And as we come here, in the foxhole was about like in here, and as we came up on this side like that, as I was passing that, now my group had already passed through there on it. A Jap popped out of the spider hole out of there and was aiming at the guys behind me on it, and I turned around just in time and saw him, and I just pulled my trigger about 3 or 4 times and shot him, and he spattered his face on it. And when I went back over there and saw him where he was, made sure, and there's another Jap there, his partner was still inside the cave, inside the spider hole there. So
The spider hole being...
well, spider hole is a hole about that big around,
Right.
like that, and it goes straight down like that. And I don't know if it had any connection to a tunnel or not underneath there, but that's where they would come. They'd stay in there, and they'd sneak up out of there and pull away the leaves, or not leaves, but wood or whatever they had covering it, and then shoot you, and then jump back down in there. Kind of like a spider would come up, grab its prey, and get it. That's why spider hole.
So you had
And
a
so
second
then
one down
I
the
looked in there and I saw this other one, so I shot him. Now, I don't know how many of my men that had already gone through there and ahead of me that those two Japs had shot
Right.
on it. But
No, you could have taken out some people you knew.
it could have, I don't know. So I got up to the end of the, up before, between, just before you get airport number 3. We camped in for the night, stopped over for the night, and see, I was in the 21st, I think was it, that I came in.
Right, that's what you had here, 21st.
And it took us 3 or 4 days or something to get over in this up and this far here on it. But they had what is called a sulfur field, and it was a natural formation of sulfur, and you dig down like that, and you'd have the stench of rotten eggs, like that. And that's what that's what your foxhole was. You just go like that, and it was just burning. So we took our ponchos and laid it down on the lower part of it like that, and then crawled in this rotten egg thing like that. And that's what we slept in like that. And that's so far north that it's real cold at night. And of course we were acclimated to jungle warfare, hot, muggy, humidity and stuff, you know. And so the sulfur on the ponchos act like a little heater. So it was real nice and comfortable, you know.
I didn't even think about it.
Yeah, just really, but stunk like you don't know what.
I bet there were no bugs crawling around.
No bugs, no nothing. But that was something in those little sulfur. That was made a big impression on me. Then we left. Then went from here and then went across the Modiyama Airport. This is Modiyama Airport 1, Modiyama Airport 2, Modiyama Airport 3, and we get on here. Just before we got within about 1,000 yards of the beach there on March the 3rd. And on March the 3rd, we were going up over just a little rise, just before you get to the going down into the to the beach area on it. And by that time, I had caught up with my squad, and we were in a pincer movement. 5th Division was this way here, like that, and this way here, and that's where I was, right there. And my squad, my scout, a guy by the name of Navarro, and I don't know where and what happened to him or anything after that. The next man was a BAR, my BAR man. His name was Speed McCoy. And then myself. Navarro went over the hill, stood up there and looked. My barman came up there and he stood up there and looked around to see what before he went down. And I came up over the hill and a Japanese machine gun opened up on me and sprayed me and shot me across my chest, my lungs, my clavicle, my left arm. And of course I went down. And then, because see, we had pushed most of the Japanese this way, and they were getting lined up over here with machine guns. And then another outfit was coming behind us for mopping up operations on it.
So the Japanese are down here.
They're down here, and they're on this ledge of the hill. See, as we came over the hill,
They were waiting.
they were out here like on the sides and stuff like that, you know. And we'd be poking up as we came over like that. We'd just sitting up there on the sky, you know, and
Right.
spraying. Well, I came up. They let them go in. And they didn't get hurt. And then I came up over there and they sprayed me, got me. And I went down, of course, and then McCoy Speed McCoy came back and pulled me down into a foxhole, and not a fox, but into a shell hole, which is a big, deep impression. And then he stayed down there with me for a while, and as he was going up, he went back up out of the, and just as he got out of the ridge of the shell hole, well, a hand grenade, somebody threw a hand grenade at him, and he turned around, and he must have gotten 200 or 300 fragments in the back of his body, from his heel clear on up to his neck, and it just pothole, and they went in just about that far, and blood was just popping out all over his body like that. And so he just turned right around and came back down in the hole with me. And of course I was going through shock on it, and the corpsmen came up, and McCoy, myself, and another guy were the three of us were in the hole. And then the guy was giving me the corpsman was giving me plasma, and
That was awfully quick.
yeah, oh yeah, they had it right with them.
Right.
You know, they come up. That's one thing you'll never find a Marine that didn't love the corpsman. Period. I mean, they are lifesavers. But he was giving me a plasma in my arm, and he had and he hold a little plastic bag like that up this way, like so. And a grenade came in. They someone threw a grenade in the hole we were in, like that.
Oh, gosh.
And it blew up right behind the corpsman and took his 2 fingers off, just like that. He didn't drop the bag. He didn't drop the bag. And he just held it up like that
Amazing.
on it. And of course he was taking care of me. And then after the bag got empty, well then he brought it down like that and put bandages over his own hand. So, and so we waited for the stretcher bearers and stuff like that to come in, and they weren't coming in. And the reason was that they would, and the stretcher bearers were following us right behind us all the time on it. And they'd shoot one of the stretcher bearers.
Oh,
Like that.
that slowed them down.
Yeah, slowed them down. And then when they did, then another guy'd have to come up and take his place, and then the guy that they shot, they'd have to take back. So the stretchers never got up to us. And they kept shooting them as it came up, you know. And that was because of the little spider holes around there and the little caves and tunnels. So finally I said, to heck with this bit. So I still had my rifle with me, and we were always taught to disarm my rifle some way so it couldn't fall into enemy hands. Well, my rifle was an M1, and it's gas operated on it. Gas from the explosion of the shell. That way, gas. Whenever it goes out, it throws gas, and that actuated the pump to make it go back the receiver for the next one, like that. Well, I took out my knife, and I took out the plug. It's the smallest part of a rifle that's on the M1, but it's the longest name. The gas cylinder lock plug screw. And there's a little thing about like so. So, and I had and it's got a little screwdriver notch in it. So I just took that out and tossed my gun away. So the rifle is no good then at that time. And then McCoy and I walk, and this is about 2 miles back here to the beach. And we walked through all of this. He carried his BAR because that's all. He still could walk, and he still could handle it. Of course, I couldn't. And at that time, I only knew that I had my arm shot. At that particular time, I thought that's what it was that was hurting.
Okay.
And here, I thought I had blood coming through here.
Did
So
the corpsman go with you, or did
we just left. No, I
so
wouldn't
the
go to.
corpsman stayed and helped
He
you?
stayed there and helped the other people.
Oh.
Right. So he and I started walking because we were thought of as walking wounded. So we came back this way, and we didn't have fire shot or anything. Had no problems coming back, but we thought we would, because if they were shooting all the stretcher bearers coming up, but we figured we would. So that's one reason McCoy went back with me. So we got back here to the beach, which is about, I don't know how long it took us. And we laid down on the beach there and talked, and pretty soon they had the Higgins boat coming in from the hospital ships. They followed us in, and they loaded us on that, and then they took us out to the Hope, hospital ship Hope. And we got on the Hope, and they operated on me there. Well, when I got back to the beach, like so, I felt he was bandaging my arm like that, and I says, I feel really wet back here, and I started doing like that, and when I put my hand like that, well, my fingers went into my chest, because I didn't know I had been shot here on it, and so at that time I was smoking. So I had to have a cigarette. So I was looking at smoke like that, inhaled the smoke, and the smoke would come out of the hole here. So it had gone through the top of my lung, like so, and cracked my clavicle up here. So anyway, got back to the hospital ship Hope, and then they operated on me there. And I went from there to Saipan on the hospital ship.
Okay.
On it. And I stayed in the hospital there for, I don't know how long. It was a couple of days or something like that. But they were going to amputate my arm because I couldn't use it. Now, all I could do was like that. It was just a dead piece of meat there. And I wouldn't let them. And they kept saying, you have to. Well, before they put me on the ship like that, they said they were going to, and so I fought them off like that. And so they said that I was crazy. So, crazy, but I had my arm. So when they sent me back, got over to Saipan, they sent me on a airplane on a PBY. And I went to Johnson Island at first, and we stopped at Johnson Island, and the guy came on Johnson Island with a aerospray, and he came in and sprayed like that, and could spray because we were all contaminated with whatever, I don't know. Whatever we were contaminated with. But anyway, that's everybody that came from the Pacific stopped over. And they came in and we sprayed us all and everything, and then we took off and went on to the Hawaiian Islands.
When you were here, you were wounded on the...
March the 3rd.
March the 3rd, okay. When you were coming up that hill, though, were people fairly close together coming up, or were you pretty much alone and widely spaced?
No, I have to say we were in a pincer movement like that, and and we were the point.
You were the point.
We were the point.
How close were the closest other?
Oh, they were about 20 feet apart.
That close?
Oh yeah, going up there like spread out this way, about 20 feet.
So that way you didn't miss anybody.
That's right, like so. But you don't want to do like they do now. They smell each other's armpits as they're coming in. I guess they're damn mad at that. The training is so much different than now. But anyway, no, that's what you spread out because you didn't want to miss anybody, and then you didn't want them to get too many people at one time.
Yes, they did, right.
So I probably was the only guy that got shot with that machine gun. But had we been grouped like they're doing now, they'd probably get 8 or 10 of them.
Right.
But anyway, but they had that. But a lot of people, and I did not see anyone shot from the time I left there and walking back over to here. But there's fire going all over the place on it. They were shooting all over the place, but we didn't see not one Jap coming back, or we didn't see one person that had been shot. Well, I mean, a Marine that had been shot.
I
All the way
almost
there.
wonder if they thought it wasn't worth shooting you because you were wounded. That might have been it.
Well, no, it wasn't that, because they would, if they'd have known that, they'd jumped out and cut our heads off, you know.
Okay.
You know, that's good meat for them, you know. They can really go out there and shoot. They love to hit someone that's incapacitated.
Easy.
So,
Easy.
and did. They had all kinds of atrocities that,
Did you get a medal for that?
I was Purple Heart.
That's, yeah, I was,
I have two Purple Hearts, one from the stomach and one from my chest wound on it. And so
when did you get the stomach wound again? That was
I was on Guam when I was
right. Oh,
when I was in the foxhole and I got hit.
that, oh,
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
That's right.
So it. Anyway, that's when I left. Then I left and been on the Hope, and then came back. And they came back. They called me Ward 13. I was nuts, and they put me into a psychiatric ward with
Because
all the
you
crazies.
You refused to give up your arm?
That's right.
But you
And-
might have had PTS too.
Well, they a little Marine wave, a Navy wave, I guess they are, massaged my hands and my arm, my shoulder, and I was able to do this, and pretty soon I had full use of it. Not as strong as it was, but then
Right.
it's still good, and so I didn't lose my arm on it. But
Pulled one over.
yeah, but I was, as I say, they were very anxious to cut. And they did a lot of unnecessary cutting.
But at the time, it probably was easier than trying to heal.
That's right.
They're
That's
looking-
right. It was medicinally purpose. You know, they
Right.
cut it a lot easier to cut it off and throw it away than to try to fight it.
Right.
Because a lot of guys had, you know, bad wounds and stuff like that, and they put maggots down in the cast, you know, to eat the
with
dead
the
flesh.
flesh.
Yeah. So.
Actually, they're using that medically. They're doing that these days because it does really help.
Yeah, that's what, as I
It
say, it's
sounds
something that,
weird.
yeah. I don't
Yeah.
yeah.
So you hit Hawaii, and at some point you must have found her again.
Well, during the time that I left, we had one date,
About 2 dates.
2 dates before I left
And how old
Oregon.
were you when you were dating him?
I was
14,
15.
15.
I would never let my daughter date a 15.
I know. And my parents didn't know it.
Okay, I'll remember that.
So when I got back,
Well, it was only 2 dates.
when I got down into
And with other people.
Uh-huh.
We were not.
I hear excuses.
Yeah.
There was a group of us.
yeah,
You
Okay.
know.
so we went to got down into I got down in California after I left Astoria, and then I started writing to you probably then, or was it overseas?
Oh, you wrote to me overseas.
Overseas it was, and so I had this love affair overseas, you know, and I'd write, had to have somebody to write, and she had to have a boy overseas to support the thing, you know, and so I was overseas for 2 years and 2 months on it. Now these guys that talk about it now, that you know that he has stress because he's been away from his family for 6 months, you know. Well, I joined in January of '42, and I didn't see my parents again until last of '45. I never did receive a leave at all. So it was over 3 years that I was away seeing my parents. Anyway, while I was overseas, I courted her by mail. So when I came back, and I was stationed in San Diego after I was still in the hospital down in San Diego, and I was still in the nut ward. And her oldest sister was, her husband was stationed in Watsonville.
No, well, yeah.
Watsonville. So she said she was going to come down to see her.
Then I had another sister.
And she had another sister who was in Los Angeles. San Diego. So she got out of school.
And how old were you? About 18?
Well, I was,
17?
I was 17 at the
17.
time.
Okay.
And so she got permission from the principal to leave school and to come visit down her sister in Watsonville. Her husband was stationed there. And then she was going to come down and visit her other sister in San Diego and then come over and see me.
All right.
So I was over there down in San Diego, and so she finally got down to me, and I was still in nut ward, and I came into the I came out wanted to see her, and I couldn't get liberty on it. So she was living, she came down, she stayed with her sister there in San Diego. So that night, I went over to, and San Diego Hospital has a moat around it, like that, or where I wanted to get out. So I went up to that and took all my clothes off and put them in a bundle and tied them on the top of my head, put my belt around my head like that, put them up there and swam the moat and got out there where no one else could see me, and got over there, and then I used my shorts to dry myself off, and then I went on over and visited with her. Then
Did you know he did this?
I didn't know at the time. No, I knew about it later, but well, I didn't even know you were in that mental ward. He didn't say anything to me like that.
Yeah.
Well, so anyway, I came back the same way on it, and I stayed there for I don't know how long it was, but I was in this, as I say, the mental ward, but I was shot.
Right.
And so I was the only one on the mental ward that was shot, and so no one was changing my bandages, and they were getting to be stinking a little bit, and so I'd have to go out and find someone to do
And
it.
you're swimming around in the moat in the meantime.
Yeah, so,
That really helped it.
yeah. So, anyway, I got rid of that situation, and came up to get discharged from the hospital to go on my duty. I still had patches on me, and so I went into the doctor's office and for my regular exam. You look at my paper and not like that. But I was out in the hall in the waiting room, waiting for my time to go in, and heard a announcement over the radio that Franklin Roosevelt, our president, had just died. I think that was in April of 1945, something like that. And I said, man, that's terrible, So anyway, my turn came. I went up into the doctor's office. I was sitting there on the table and everything. He came in, and here I'm trying to make conversation with the doctor. Then I says, boy, I just heard the news. What news? I said, Franklin Roosevelt just died. He did? I says, yes. He looked at my papers and my gosh. So he called his buddy in from the next room, and they told him, he says, Corporal Wright says that our president just died. He says, no kidding. And he looked at the papers. Wow. Well, Mr. Wright says, I think you probably better stay here another week. He thought I was still crazy.
Why?
Because I made up a big story about Roosevelt dying. He didn't know anything about it.
Oh, he hadn't heard it.
He hadn't heard it. He was sitting in his office, see. He hadn't heard it, and so he just looked at my chart and thought, well, I was nuts still. So I had to stay in there for another week before my next. So
Oh.
Boy, was I ticked. So, anyway, so I finally got, I got out and I got a transfer to be a drill instructor in South Carolina. So I called my parents and told them, I says, now I've got a 30-day delay leave to go to South Carolina, Parris Island. I said, but I'm not going to be home right away. So I went over to the airport and I hitched a ride with the Army transport to Oregon. And I got up to Oregon and I went to see her and met her up there and her family and stuff. And then I left there and then went to Portland and got me another one, Army transport, and set on boxes. And then till I got to, I think it was Texas. Got as far as Texas.
You're flying or riding?
Flying.
Flying, okay.
Yeah.
Because I've flown on military
Yeah.
boxes.
Yeah, and just flying. At that time, you could bum a ride. You know, if there's a place available, you could go. So I got as far as I think it was either Houston or Galveston, someplace back in Texas, and I couldn't get any further without delay on it because nothing was going into Arkansas.
Right.
So and then I went in. So I went over to the train and got me a train ticket, and then I rode into that. That's how I got home. Then I spent time with my family, and that's the first time I'd seen them since I went in the service in January in '42 on it. So, and I wasn't even 21 yet.
Did you have siblings in the military?
My brother was in the Army. When I was a drill instructor in South Carolina, he was stationed in Florida, and so I'd get leave and on a 72-hour leave, and then I'd hitchhike down to Florida and visit with him down there. My younger brother went into the service, but he went into the service at a later time, and he was only 9 when I left, and so he was just younger. Much younger on that. So.
That is a whale of a tale.
But
My gosh.
so it was kind of the.
That's intense.
Yeah. It was my military 4 years and 1 day and a couple of hours or something like that. And the reason 1 day is I signed up for a 4-year enlistment, and January the 21st, 1946 was a Sunday. And the office ain't open. So I couldn't get my papers signed. So I had to wait until Monday morning to get my papers signed.
Oh gosh. Where did you go after you got discharged?
I went back to Little Rock, Arkansas. And I stayed there got out in January, and I looked for a job, and I was a traveling salesman.
And you sold?
Yeah, I was about 20, I guess, like that. And I sold with H.L. Blake. No. Yeah, I think it was H.L. Blake. H.L. Blake Wholesalers, I think it was. And I had a 1939 Ford Coupe. And I packed all my stuff in the back of that. And then I'd go to these different little gas stations and mom and pop grocery stores and sell different items, and 1,001 items. I had everything that one of those punch gambling things. You can get punch board things, for gambling.
She's not old enough to know all those.
Some of them I know about. Yeah, my dad skirted the law a little bit.
Yeah, and at that time,
Those stores had those.
silk stockings were you couldn't get. And I had boxes of 51 denier stockings.
Oh boy.
And so if you bought $50 worth of this, I'd give you one pair of socks for your wife.
That's a good sales chance.
Yeah, really. So that's what I did until June of 1946. And then I quit and picked up a couple of people that lived in the same. My father was and mother lived in Pine Bluff Arsenal, in the arsenal, one of the largest chemical arsenals around at that time, and still is. And they still have bunkers and igloos and stuff like that full of biological stuff down there that they don't talk about. But it's a big place, and it's another story. But anyway, so I picked up a couple of there, and then we came out, drove out with that 39 Ford, and I dropped them off at Muleshoe, Texas. And I stayed over there one night, and then left them, and then I drove on up to visit with her, stayed up there with her, and talked her into marrying me. So on June the 30th, 1946, we got married.
All right. I was waiting for a happy ending.
Yeah, it was. It was on it. That was. By that time, she still thought I was older than I was, because I didn't tell anybody, because I was scared. I didn't know if I
They'd throw you in jail for lying.
Yeah, I don't know what gee, what's it going to do to me, Now I had put in for disability. I got at that time 30% disability, and I didn't know if they'd take my disability away or or fraud. I didn't know, so I just kept it. I kept that birthday for
Well, until you were 62.
62.
And then you got taught by Social
And
Security.
then you caught up with him.
Yeah, and then they got to me, It's kind of funny that we were married, and I got a birthday card and a letter from my mother. Happy birthday, and all that. Sorry we can't be with it. We were living in Oregon at the time, or they were still in Arkansas. This was in July. She sent me this, and Catherine says, "Well, what's all this bit? Birthday? It's not your birthday. It's not until December. Then I had to tell her. I said, "Now between us now." And still, and I kept it until Social Security.
So your kids grew up thinking,
Probably did.
oh gosh,
It's really,
that's such, it's a good story.
yeah, really, it's kind of, you don't know. At that time, So I was still young. I wasn't even 21 when I got married. But I think we made the right move. It's lasted this long, so
Yeah.
you can't train another one.
I'm sure. But yeah, I keep looking at, you met her, you wrote to her, you visit her, you kept coming back. Must have been something nice to...
As a side point, just for the fun of it, I met her in Astoria, and I couldn't come in, how was it? I couldn't come in, I couldn't get off leave that day or that night. And she was coming into town. And I said, well, I can't have a date with you because I'm not, don't have leave tonight. So she said, well, okay, so I'll see you later. Well, in the meantime, I got off. And of course she lived in Woodson, which is way up north at that time. Anyway, so I got off duty anyway, and so I got leave that night. So I took off. I went into town, into Astoria, and I met this girl in town. And so we had a date, and we were walking down the street, wasn't it? Walking down the street with it, and here she comes. Yeah.
Oh my God.
So yeah, really.
That's the last time I saw him.
Yeah.
He left.
Yeah, that was the last time. Anyway, this girl that I met had she liked me pretty much, and I liked her, but didn't like her that much. Anyway, when I left Astoria and went to and joined the Raiders, and I got down, I was in Raider training in Camp Pendleton, and we only got leave, liberty, every other week. So we'd and then we'd get off, and then we'd come back and we'd train for 2 weeks, and we'd get off again and go into San Diego or Los Angeles, someplace for liberty. Well, I had liberty that weekend, and I came back on a Monday or whenever it was, and I was out training in the field, and a Jeep came over and said that I had an important telephone call, and so of course I was very worried, and says, and so Colonel Roosevelt sent me out to get you. So of course I got in the Jeep and took me back to his tent. He had a tent there, and they had one of the field phones on the pole and stuff. And so I introduced myself, and I went in there, and he got the party on the line. And it was this girl that I had met up there, and she wanted me, and she was down in San Diego. She'd come down to visit so and so, and she wanted me to get liberty and come over, and we could get married. So, now what am I? When I'm 17, something like that, I guess at that time. And so I said, well, I can't get liberty. I just, for 2 weeks. Of course, she was down there for a little time. So since can't your commanding officer give you liberty and stuff like that, we can get married before you go overseas and stuff. Good. I said, well, I tell you, give me your number and I'll call back on it. So I hung up, and Colonel Roosevelt said, did I hear right that some girl, I guess he called it, some girl wants you to come in and get married? I said, yes, that's, and she wants me to ask if I can get off, because I just got off leave, and says I can't get in for another 2 weeks. And he says, sit down, son, I got something to tell you. So he told me all about how the women, they called them camp followers, and that would try to get, when they see that a serviceman was going into harm's way, where they tried to marry them, and then they get the $10,000 insurance on it. They get all this allotment that you get. Allotment too. See, I would put in $50, and then the government matches it, and then they would get an allotment check all the time when I'm overseas. And if I should die, then they get the $10,000 insurance.
Oh, that's hard.
See, and so he says, and there's a lot of girls that do this. Not saying that your girl is doing it.
Yeah.
I says, I said, well, I've only met her one time,
Oh.
And like he says, does that tell you anything? So anyway, so Roosevelt and I had a little thing going at that time. And we'd see each other, and he'd kind of smile, and I'd smile. In fact, we met him down in, where was it, Washington?
Washington, D.C.
Yeah, Washington. And went over and we talked, and I reminded him of it, and he says, yeah, I remembered that. And he says, I even used that same example in some of my lectures that I used to give to kids. So she sat down in his lap, and we took pictures of her sitting she's sitting on